Welcome back to Comic Crackle. I'm your host Kirby, and you're watching Motherbox News, your trusted source from the source. And today we're going to be talking about The New Gods issue 10 by Ram V, Evan Cagle, and Pi Par. Now before we get into this issue, I did want to make an announcement. We have merch now. Over the course of making videos, a lot of people have asked me about where I got the Motherbox shirt that I would wear previously. And I didn't really have an answer because I bought it off of Instagram in like 2018 and I can't find that person's shop anywhere. So I took it upon myself and I made up a whole bunch of designs, all legally distinct. Please don't sue me, DC Comics. So if you're interested in supporting the channel or just getting a shirt of your own, it's gonna be the top comment pinned in the comments. Okay, now we can get back to the issue. The issue starts off with a 4-page sequence that's illustrated by Evan Cagle, and it depicts Sarapin as he moved throughout his life. It shows Sarapin and the rest of the Forever People once they first arrived on Earth. Throughout Jack Kirby's Fourth World, you can see the through line where he's identifying a second rise in fascism. The primary New Gods title would follow Orion and Light Ray, and would be a deconstruction on nature versus nurture, as well as depicting the futility of war. The Forever People would follow a group of teens that were inspired by the Flower Power movement, and depicting them uprooting the rising fascism as they make their way through Earth. Specifically, Gordon Godfrey, who would be a stand-in for televangelist Billy Graham, would appear in some of the early issues of the Forever People. It would draw parallels between the real world and the fictional world, equating anti-life to fascism. This second rise in fascism would be attributed to Darkseid's control over Earth. Jack Kirby was not subtle in his politics, and he was correctly identifying the rising in fascism originating from the conservatives' values of the 1970s. So in saying that, whenever we see the issue open with Sarapin and the Forever People, now you have the proper context for where they were supposed to originate from in their original creation. We see as Sarapin is the youngest of the group, and he's infatuated with cowboys. He's watching John Wayne movies in the similar way that kids would be watching superhero movies today. I read this as an exploration on what cowboy movies are supposed to depict. When we think about cowboys in film, it's typically going out to the Wild West and making a new life for yourself. But also in those films is a thematic underline of colonialism. The narrative is drawing a direct correlation between cowboys and settling the Wild West and our exploration of the stars and colonizing the moon and beyond. In the first page, it's supposed to be depicting the end of the 60s and how colonization of outside of our world was seen as a progressive idea. However, as we move throughout time, Sarapin becomes more disillusioned with this idea of cowboy movies because it's directly paralleling the current times and how that has been corrupted. It strips it of the childlike wonder of colonization, and it shows the real world underbelly and how it's devolved over time. As the decades roll on, you can see that the cowboy films are incorporating a lot of the rhetoric that's isolationist and discriminatory. The last page in this sequence holds up a mirror to our modern times and says, Jack Kirby was not wrong. We are currently going through the third wave of fascism based on conservatives ruling everything and making our society worse. This only results in Sarapin being disillusioned with the ideas of the Wild West and the colonialism, and it shows a real world parallel for what is going on in the world. And honestly, the entirety of this run has been dealing with the consequences of colonialism, with the last issue opening on Darkseid ravaging the planet of Karak Ator and leading to something even worse coming and taking its claim on both life and anti-life. We are literally reaping what we're sowing due to colonialization. I really just have to applaud the level of political commentary that's been interspersed throughout, and this moment really stood out to me, and just hats off to both Rom and Evan. We then pick up where we left off in The New Gods issue 9 with Maxwell Lord controlling Kamal. Sarapin finally breaks and he confronts Maxwell Lord and says, "Why are we including the people of Apocalypse in our goals? What's going on here? Like, we can't be doing this. We are literally aligning ourselves with evil." And Maxwell Lord has a pretty good response where he says, "Look at my forehead. You see the Omega symbol on it. What did you think this was? You were willing to overlook the aesthetics to get what you wanted out of this situation, but it was only a matter of time that I started aligning myself with the people of Apocalypse." And once again, I need to talk about the political parallels for what's going on in the story and then what's playing out in the real world. Sarapin is practically embodying a centrist that is foregoing some of the aesthetics of the conservatives of the time, but they're promising to do Nazi shit. So when the conservatives that have up to this point promised to do Nazi shit start doing Nazi shit, yeah, you can't really be surprised. Anyway, that's enough of me characterizing it. I also reached out to Ram V and asked him about his portrayal of Sarapin and him turning on Maxwell Lord in this time, and he said,
"The Sarapin question really is something I'd hope that people take and pick up from the story rather than me spelling out my intentions. I think authorial intent is overrated as a subject of discussion. I'm more curious to see what people made of it. So rather than speak to the parallels of how cowboys are shown in Sarapin's characterization, I think I'll talk about my experiences with America. Obviously, I grew up consuming a lot of American pop culture, and later on, as I would read, works by authors like Warren Ellis, I would come to this idea that there was a promised future that humanity never got. We were supposed to have space travels and floating cars and teleportation. Instead, we got an iPhone and we got swiping and we got social media. So there's a kind of betrayal or a haunting of a future that we didn't have. But in this case, to me, a character who is a god dressed as a cowboy, as someone with an outsider's perspective, felt like a sort of promised American idealism that too is something that we never got. And I think America today is haunted by this idealism that it seemed to portray, and it seemed to hold up as an exemplary ideal of what the sort of all-American experience was meant to be. There's an exceptionalism to it. There is an exploratory nature to it. The cowboys are explorers, they're frontiersmen, they carve out their path where they go. And yet, look at where we are today. And I think that was kind of the parallel that I was intending to draw. And I imagine being a human being who was elevated to godhood, who was elevated essentially to a place of idealism, who is then looking at the place where he came from and going, what happened? What happened to that ideal? How do we find ourselves here? So yeah, that was some of the feeling I was looking to explore, partly, through my own experiences. I moved to America when I was a teenager, and it was an energizing and electrifying experience, as I'm sure it continues to be to a lot of people who experienced that country, that time in their lives. But I also look at it now and I go, you've lost yourself. Surely, somehow, somewhere along the way, you've lost your way, in that you've lost in embracing what you are embracing right now. You've lost that sense of idealism that made you so attractive to me when I was, 19, 20, and I'd moved to the States for the first time.
Thanks, Rom. Now back to the issue. Moving on in the story, we pick up in new light, as the New Gods Council and the Justice League are just becoming aware that Kamal is no longer there, and they also find out that Sarapin isn't there. But nobody wants to point fingers just yet. When they're weighing out their options, Orion says that if we know where they are, we need to go and get Kamal. We cannot leave an opportunity or an ounce of chance that they could win this prophecy, with Mr. Terrific, Mr. Miracle, and Big Barda all opposing this, because Orion is not a dog of war anymore. He's Oathmaker. He has to lead the New Gods. He can't just be an individual agent that's just doing whatever he wants. He has to think bigger. In a moment of refreshing maturity, he takes a breath and he asks Mr. Terrific what he has in mind. Speaking of this level of maturity, let's cut to a question that's asked by Lucas. who says, "My question is in regards to Orion as a dog of war and now Oathmaker. How does one so intrinsically connected with war/violence get to a place like Isaiah's? What was your process for getting Orion to that place?" Well, thank you for your question, Lucas. And now, Ram V. Ram?
I mean, this is a complicated question, partly because Orion is embracing his new station, if you will, more out of necessity than from a place of ownership, in that he's taking on this mantle because his people need him to lead, but he explicitly states he doesn't feel that he is worthy of it, and that he will never truly accept it until his father tells him that he is ready. So I don't know that he is emotionally or from a character development perspective at a place that is similar to Isaiah's. I don't think there's any rule that says High Father must be, the position of High Father must be taken up by a character of peace and benevolence. They're gods. They will choose leaders that they require and need at this particular point in time, and they are under siege and under attack from all sides, and so they choose in that moment a leader that will take that burden upon his chest. But is he ready? Is he in the same place as Isaiah's? I don't know. That answer has been spelled out yet, and I suspect if you continue reading, you will see and perhaps come to different conclusions. So without spoiling anything, I will leave it at that.
Thanks, Ram. Now back to the issue. And this is when Mr. Terrific says that they're able to roughly outline the location of the people of Apocalypse and hopefully sending in like a strike team to get in, get out as quiet as possible. Well, they do get there, but then they're immediately attacked by the female Furies. Mr. Terrific yells out over the comms that a ship is leaving and we need to stop them, or just board the ship, whatever we have to do to make sure that Kamal is not transported away. Once their attention is elsewhere, Granny Goodness tries to send the female Furies to attack both Orion and Scott, with Big Barda and Wonder Woman stepping in to fight side by side. Orion and Mr. Miracle are able to escape this force field that they were previously put into, and Wonder Woman and Big Barda really make a stand, and I absolutely love this scene. There's something so cool about Wonder Woman being affiliated with the New Gods. No, not like that. Just being a part of that pantheon and seeing how well that she fits in. I would really love to see more stories with Wonder Woman and Big Barda, or just the entirety of the cast of New Gods, because I feel like she fits in a similar way that Superman does. At this moment, we cut to the ship that's escaping, and it shows as Maxwell Lord Desaad and a confused and hypnotized Kamal are all on board the ship and trying to leave the atmosphere. Maxwell Lord brings up the story of Icarus, and I feel like his explanation of that story is a very good insight into what he's thinking in the moment. He says, it's supposed to be a cautionary tale about ambition. Icarus flew too close to the sun, but really it's a story about control, to keep people from reaching for the stars, to keep God-fearing men from reaching out and touching the gods. We pick up with Orion and Scott as they're chasing after the spacecraft, and it goes through a boom tube. Once they identify this, they ask Mr. Miracle if he knows anything about where they're trying to escape to, with Mr. Miracle hinting at the escape to the Darkseid created universe, aka the Absolute Universe. Orion tells Scott that whenever they find the boy, they need to do what it takes. Capture him, kill him, it doesn't matter. With Scott saying, we're gonna find him, it's gonna be okay, don't talk like that, it's probably not a good thing for High Father to talk like that. At this point, we cut back to New Light with Miss Martian and a few of the Green Lanterns looking at this portal, and Miss Martian explaining what it is. She says, there's a theory. Just a theory, that mirror universes lie on the other side of a black hole. Of course, no one can prove this because no one would survive going through the singularity at the heart of one. But I do wonder, just what is powerful enough to radiate across universes? And we know what it is because it's the Absolute Universe that was created in Darkseid's seeming death that we saw in DC All-In #1. So now the New Gods are going to the Absolute Universe, and I feel like that that's going to be explored in the next issue. But it's at that moment that the alarms sound and they ask what's going on. Are they being attacked by more new gods? And it's worse. The Niktari have arrived. And that's where we're going to leave it for this issue of the New Gods. And don't forget to pick up the penultimate issue, issue 11, on October 15th. It's all been leading to this. So you know what you got to do. Buy some merch and trust the source.